Hello and welcome back to the Honest Business Podcast. I hope you are very well. I hope you are having a great day when you're listening to this. I'm just faffing with my hair. Sorry if you can hear that. And if you're watching on video, I apologise. So today, what are we doing today? We are talking about digital campaigns, and I was going to take you behind the scenes with me and break down International Women's Day 2023 because as a business we executed and delivered a digital campaign which went really well, and I thought it would be an interesting one for you to, because you're nosy probably like me and you probably want to know what was going on and what was the how did it go. So let's talk about that, but then and also to be super useful for you, I'm just going to talk generally about campaigns and kind of best practice and things to think about if you want to kind of carry out your own campaign. So, in terms of, if you don't know, you don't follow us over on other social platforms, for International Women's Day this year, I decided to, as a business, mark the day, celebrate the day, and deliver a social campaign which went out over about 3 days. In total, there was about 25 pieces of content, I think, published across about 5 different platforms, if you include podcast, email, TikTok. Oh, we've got a lot actually. Hang on. Podcast, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, email. Depends what you want to class as a touch point, but there's about 6 different avenues, about 25 pieces of content published. Some of that was repurposed content, etc., but about somewhere around that. And then on top of that, I don't know, probably over in total, in terms of like additional content that was shared and reshared and stuff, I don't know, maybe 40 pieces of content in addition to that, on stories and things. So yeah, it was quite a good campaign. It went really, really well. It was something that wasn't on our yearly plan, but I like to listen to the team. And I was in a team meeting with my market manager, and we were talking about the CEO Edit, which is our email that goes out on every Tuesday. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. I'll put the link below. And we were chatting about themes for that, and we were going to do something for International Women's Day, and she was like, why we're not doing something more across the board? And I went through a whole rhetoric about why we don't, and she challenged me on it, which was really good. And I talk a lot about this in the sense of, I really want people in my team, and you should have people in your team who challenge you, who push you, who want to kind of rewrite the narrative and push you to do things you wouldn't normally do. And I love about that, about the team, that they are able to do that, and they do it really openly. And sometimes we act on the things they suggest and other times we don't, but this time we did. And I was like, you know what, yeah, let's go for it. The slight issue we had was that she was going away for 2 weeks to Bali, which was amazing, living her best life, had a fabulous time. So pleased she's back, glad to have her back this week. And she was leaving, I think, in about a week's time, something like this. So we didn't have long to pull it together. Maybe 2 weeks, I'm not sure, a week and a half, something like that. And so it was quite all systems go. But I'm lucky because we have a lean business and we have a flexible team, and we have a team that is multi-skilled and is able to kind of jump on things, that I then just got everybody on board, or most people who needed to be in the business. And it was a big team effort. So we created a plan, created a strategy, decided what I wanted the message to be, decided where we were going with it, and went for it. And you know what? It was absolutely lovely. It was great. The main kind of point of the campaign was to celebrate women in the May James community and just shine a light on their achievements, and then like share some of their top business advice. But I just wanted to really, it was a celebration. It's not a sales activity. It wasn't a like market and ploy for anything. It was more so I just wanted to share and to shout people from the rooftops. Now, we did incorporate other content into that because otherwise it would have got very repetitive, obviously. But that was the kind of main crux of the idea. If you listen to this and you were part of it, I really am appreciative of you for getting involved, and that was really nice and really great for you to do so, and I hopefully you enjoyed being featured. in the end, we ended up featuring 14 women from the May James community, which is fantastic, from different places around the world, different businesses, different stages of business. It was a really great collection of women. Now, what we did with that was I left it open for people to self kind of identify themselves as wanting to be involved. I didn't reach out to anyone. We just put it out on Instagram stories, which if you don't follow us over there every day on Instagram stories, why not? Because that is where I hang out. That's where all the juicy information gets shared. That's where you get to see day-to-day building businesses and see what goes on. So I'd 100% recommend you go and look at that. But that was where we put an opportunity out. And as I say, 14 lovely people decided to take us up on that offer. And yeah, it was good. We are organised as ever as a business. So there was, we decided to use Airtable because Airtable is just a dream when it comes to collecting data and things. And we had forms, and yeah, the whole team just get on it. And that's the one thing I love about small businesses and how reactive we can be. If we need to be, I can send a voice message out to whoever I need to, and things just get done in the background, and links get sent to me, and I'm like, ding, amazing, great, and we can move. And that speed really allows for us to do a lot of things. But yeah, so the campaign went really well. We had a blog article, which you can go and visit if you wish to. It'll be linked below. Sharing the 14 plus me entrepreneurs' top business tips, which was really good. It's a great read, actually. It was really, really nice. We also had the podcast, which might not have been last week's episode when you're listening to this, but it was when I'm recording this, and that was episode 50, which was all about the glass ceiling of communication. If you haven't listened to that episode, I'd highly recommend you go and listen to it. It's a really key piece of conversation that needs to be added to your kind of thought process. So go and have a listen to that. We also had the CEO edit, which I mentioned earlier, which included some of the entrepreneurs and some of their business advice in there, which was a great email, and we kind of just shone a light on those, and I wrote a message in the email, which I do every week. We also had a reel on Instagram, which was a community reel, which was the kind of main bulk of the content, in the sense of having one main piece of content to share that was video based, which took a hell of a lot of time. Basically, we asked for clips for the people who were contributing, and we put them all together, and there was a lot going on there, and my amazing market manager dealt with that, and she created something that was really cool. And then amongst that, there was also other content of carousels, there was videos, there was images, there was lots of other pieces of content that was drip fed in between from me. I left a message for women on International Women's Day. We had a few different elements of that. I was really happy with that. It felt like a good amount of content. The one thing I was concerned, so we had more ideas than what we posted. I was concerned that it was going to be too much, and so we cut it down. And actually, I felt like it was a really nice amount of content. Personally, I felt so anyway. We posted a schedule so that people could know what was coming up during the day, and we had about 6 to 8 different time things throughout the day for people to access different pieces of content, which we had some really nice feedback around. People were saying how they felt like they were going on like an Instagram retreat, or they felt like they were going around looking for things. It was kind of like a little hunt, which was really fun. And it was just a nice thing, it was nice to celebrate the day and also have some, deeper conversations. The whole premise of the campaign, I wanted to keep it really light, and I didn't want it to be really heavy. Now, not that there's not a place for that, but for the purpose of this campaign, I think it's important to really be clear on your purpose. That wasn't the aim. The aim was for people to, shine a light, celebrate people's achievements. And the community reel was included. Basically, we asked people, what is your biggest achievement to date? And people then shared with audience what their biggest achievement was, which was fantastic and lovely. So yes, that was really good. It had a good flow to it. There were inevitably issues, because you can't really do a campaign without them most of the time, in terms of what could have been improved or changed or different. We had, so the campaign ran from Tuesday morning to Friday morning-ish, and we just had tech issues from start to finish, which was interesting. Instagram we initially had a kind of 3 split image carousel for 3 different posts, which was then going to be a carousel with videos embedded into them and with other slides, and it wouldn't work when we posted it. I tried it on a dummy account and it had worked fine. And then we went to post it on our account and it just would not happen. Tried different devices. And sometimes Instagram just isn't your friend and is not going to work. And so I quickly had to come up with a different solution. And that was just kind of me on my own because other members of the team were away and doing other things. So anyway, the visuals of it changed somewhat. The plan of it, the timing somewhat changed. But we found a solution. We found a workaround. We made it happen. It was fine. Nothing was bad. It was all right. But it did mean that we had more posts than was originally planned, which was something that I was conscious of in terms of just annoying Instagram. It's always a debate, isn't it, about how often you want to be posting. So we did that. It was fine. We saved the day. It was all okay. It is what it is. At the end of the day, it's a campaign. It's not gonna there wasn't anything drastic was gonna happen. What else could have been improved or changed? I'm thinking, there's always an element of things are never finished. And so as someone who is a recovering perfectionist and has been for many, many years, I have to be really careful and I draw the line and I just go with stuff because otherwise it would never post and we'd never post anything. But naturally, you look back and you think, I would have changed that, I would have done this, would have changed that. We had tech issues with the website because some coding was not working for us and was not saving and processing, and so there were certain little bits and tweaks, but we managed to fix those on the day itself, so that was okay. It went really, really well, and it's just a hell of a lot of hard work. And I was laughing because it was International Women's Day, and I'd been to an event, then I was at a business lunch, and I sat there and I said to someone, I was like, yeah, remind me not to do a campaign. I was like, this is why I don't do a campaign a lot of the time. And the only reason I say that is because the amount of work and planning and attention to detail and time that goes in to making these things happen, and they're over so quick, and the relevancy of social dies so fast that it's a lot for a small business to push out. Obviously, if you are a much bigger, huge conglomerate, then people have got X amount of teams working on one specific thing. So I was really proud of the team, of the effort and outcomes that we had managed to achieve in such a small space of time. But yes, it's a reminder of when you're thinking about doing campaigns, what does that take away from? What does that distract from? Because I made a decision at the point in which right back at the start, which I was telling you about, in terms of saying to my marketing manager, yeah, let's do it, let's do something. Before me saying yes, the reason there was resistance was because I knew fine well and understood that if we go yes with something, because of how we are as a business at May James and as a brand, we aren't the sort of people that do something half-assed, is what I would tend to say. It's just for anyone who's what do you want about, means if we're going to do something, we're going to do it well. So that inevitably means that multiple people get involved and we get other people from the team to get involved, and it means that people's time spent elsewhere, and so inevitably means that projects get slowed down, and it means that to-dos get not done and other people's priorities shift. And that is really important, because when I talk in business a lot about you as the CEO, as the founder, as the MD, have to be really clear on your time and be really careful, is because whatever decision you make massively disrupts a lot of the time and changes what the team's output's going to be and how much money you're paying for stuff, essentially. And so for me, it was am I going to commission this campaign or am I not? Because ultimately it's going to cost me money. Yeah, I had 4 team members, 4 of us, 3 of us. 3. Well, 4 including me, at different points working on it, sometimes everybody at the same time. That cost me money. So whether or not because it's not a commercial campaign and it wasn't that we were trying to make sales or anything like that, I have to make a judgment call of is it worth me commissioning this? Can I allocate precious team hours to doing this? And a lot of business owners don't think about that. They'll just be like, yeah, let's do it. But for me, it's a really important thing to take into account. Now, in this instance, I felt like it was appropriate, and so I did say, yes, let's go for it, knowing fine well that meant the week, certain goals for the end of the month weren't going to get hit because of they weren't going to get signed off on projects and things because of people's time being spent elsewhere, which is totally fine. Like, that's okay. I made that decision, but I think it's important to talk you through that, because it's not just a case of me being like, yeah, let's do something that's off the plan and let's go off cuff. I am very someone who is happy to do things that aren't on the plan, and are very happy, I'm very happy to be reactive when it's appropriate to be. However, I'm also someone who has my plan next to me at all times and understands, right, well, this person in the business is supposed to be doing this and so-and-so is supposed to be doing this. And as soon as we start deterring people from that, then you have to understand what the consequences of that are going to be. However, it was fantastic. We had a really great time. It was really lovely to feature and celebrate the amazing women in our community. Will I do it again? Potentially. Who knows? It's not on the plan to do it in 6 months' time or anything. But it's definitely not a never. And I really enjoyed just like featuring and sharing a light for the people in my community. And that was ultimately what I wanted to do it for. And it's okay that problems happen. Problems are normal. Like, I knew something was going to go wrong. It just always does. Like, it's impossible for it not to some degree. So, we were prepared somewhat for the fact that something was going to happen. You just put plenty of buffer time in and things. And we had a lot of, I haven't got it next to me, huge, when we talk about planning and how we plan obviously online, virtually via meetings, but I then had a massive sticky notes with the whole thing planned out, and then we put it into an online documentation, and we put it into Canva, then we put it onto Airtable, then I translate and check off both sides because I need an in-person copy personally. That's just how I work. And so there was a lot going on. There was a lot happening, a lot going on, a lot to make it, happen. And it's funny because when I consume other people's content, it's so easy to forget how much goes into it because you're just consuming it. You're like, oh, okay, great, she's posted that, or they've done this, or whatever. But it was funny because it reminded me of like, yeah, goodness me, it is a real push, and you do, there's so much time that goes into the small details. But in terms of, I wanted to just touch on, if you're thinking about doing a campaign and giving you a few kind of step-by-step processes, I suppose, if you want to call it that, of things to consider. But I'm first of all going to talk through things to consider doing a digital campaign, and then when you shouldn't do it, because I think this is really important. So when you do a social campaign or a digital campaign or any kind of campaign, I think it's important to note that it's quite an indulgent activity and it's not an essential in business. Now, some people will argue with me that it is, and if you're running a startup business, then potentially yes, in terms of some sort of thing where you need to just get attention to your business. However, most businesses, B2B businesses, just most businesses listen to this podcast. It's not something you're going to be doing all the time. And it is quite indulgent for the reasons I listed before. And it's, it's often one of these ones where, is it going to really add much to your business? Questionable. Is it going to help your brand identity? Maybe. Is it going to help get your visibility up? Potentially. But it's like, it's all ifs and buts, and a lot of it's quite intangible. So I think it's really important to think about, do not, if you are panicking about cash flow or you're panicking about where your next sales come from, doing some sort of random campaign is not going to be on your list. Like, do not have that as like, yes, I'm going to just get distracted and do that. If you're supposed to be launching a new product and you've got to get all of that made up, you maybe want to launch a course and you're supposed to be focused on that. Don't detour for 3 weeks by doing that. Focus on the thing you're doing. So I think that's really important to say. And I think for those of you who have followed me for a while will know that this is not something I really do, in the sense of like, I don't just come up with an idea and then execute, because the reality of it is in the business, I have an amazing group of people who will come up with ideas, every week sometimes, and I have to make a judgment call on whether to execute on them. And a lot of the time it's like, no, we'll do it in 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, and there's stuff on the pile for however long time. It's very rare that I'm like, yep, let's go, let's do something. This was obviously an exception, but I think that's important to say, because this is easily a tunnel for you to just lose weeks of your business away and be highly unproductive. So this is more talking to you if you are really making decent money in your business. You don't have to be making decent money, but it's just more so like, where are you at in terms of growth and where do you want to get to? And have you got the resource and capacity? And so when I'm saying that, that's why I'm linking it to being at that point. then, doing a campaign can be really beneficial for your business, especially if you want to access multiple groups of people. Like, that wasn't the reason I did it, but I have seen really great campaigns done where you can collaborate with individuals and you can really help with exposure and really help with sending a message out. Now, the other reason we connected with International Women's Day is because as a business, that is hugely important to us. It's hugely important and linked to our mission and our vision. It's also something that I'm really passionate about as a founder. So that really connected the dots and really made sense. There will be things in the calendar of the year that make sense for you and your business. And really, listen to them and go with it and think about it and lean into it, because it's a really kind of important time for some people. This is the first year that I've really fully celebrated International Women's Day, and that was for a whole host of reasons, some of which I went into the campaign. So if you're interested, go and check that out on Instagram. But it's a challenging one, right? It's a challenging one sometimes to just fully know, is it time to get involved with something or is it not? And I personally felt like it was for us this year. We did it in a certain way, and we were really strategic in certain ways about language we used and how we positioned things, which obviously takes time, but that's fine. That's what we chose to do. So I would say when you shouldn't do a digital campaign is if you're really focused on achieving something and then you're just going to detour everybody off, especially team, because once you detour a team off something, you've then got to account for the time that it's going to take for them to get back on track, which for some projects is a bloody nightmare. It's a pain in the arse. So you've got to really be clear. I could see that what everybody was working on was actually at a point where if I took everybody off it, it was all right, because we were at a point where we're just in the point of the year, whereas for our, I'm just looking over here, and our projects and things, they were just at a point where it was okay. However, had we been at a different point of the year, it would have been a straight out absolute no-go. Put it on the calendar for 2024 and let's do it for then. So it's just kind of depending on where you're at is what you want to kind of think about. The other thing to think about is about benefits of doing a digital campaign, which we did touch on, but I just want to mention that. So there are huge benefits to doing campaigns, and essentially it's about shouting, right? It's about people understanding that you're there and saying, hey, this is us, this is what we stand for, this is what the message of this campaign is about. And you can do that from a promotional perspective if you wish to. So what you can argue is a launch. A lot of you, what you look at as a traditional launch in the online business space is somewhat of a campaign. If you do it right and you do it well and you do it properly, it's essentially a campaign over a week, over 2 weeks, over 3 weeks, some of you over 3 months. And so it depends on what you class as a campaign, but it can be hugely beneficial for your business in sense of getting eyes on your business. A campaign can be a great option if you're changing your messaging and you really want to get people to understand, what are you there for? What do you stand for? So if someone's pivoted sometimes as a, I don't think I've ever shared this before, but as a great strategy in terms of change management, in terms of implementation, and in terms of authority and repositioning technique, doing a campaign like, I don't want to say like this, but doing a digital campaign can be a great kind of launch into that to kind of shift perception, and that really works. So sometimes that might work for you. And in terms of can you sell whilst doing a digital campaign, that's something that's interesting. I would say, yeah, you can, 100%. Our campaign, that was absolutely not the intention. And actually it was interesting because my market manager and I had a bit of a backwards and forwards about calling it a campaign, because she was concerned that she felt like the word campaign would kind of allude to people that it was some sort of sales activity and some kind of thing where I was trying to generate revenue. And I was like, oh goodness, no, that's not, like, this literally couldn't be further from what the point of it is. Like, you guys know me, and I will happily sell every single day from my heart for the day I die. Like, I love selling every day. However, that was not the point of this campaign. So we had a discussion around that. And that was a really nice one. Again, a great example of where we love having challenging conversations and we love kind of questioning things in the business because it's important. It breathes kind of depth into things. But can you sell? Yes, you can. I think the best campaigns are when it's not obvious and when you're not, that isn't the main game. So I think for people who are doing this, it's like, that's why I'm saying don't do it if you need cash and that's your main focus. If you need cash, like, you need to just go and sell. This is not that. It's not in addition to, and it's not, well, it is in addition to, and it's not kind of in what's the word? Like, in absence of, it's not that, you know, you've got to sell and that's a separate thing. I think the thing with a campaign can be is it's really nice to get a message across and for people to understand who you are as a brand. I think it's a great example of showing your brand, and really expand on what people maybe connect you and associate with you as a brand. So that was kind of my thoughts on that. But you can sell in the sense of behind the scenes, or you can leave very subtle call to actions. We had call to actions throughout the campaign, but it was very much about guiding people to the next piece of content. And when we're trying to get people to move between platforms, which I do not normally like to do. So in our content, we typically try, well, we can't always do it, but there's a lot of trying to keep people on one platform because that's much easier than trying to switch people and get people to move around the internet. This actually was a let's move around the internet exercise. We did do a lot of things strategically positioned to allow for people to still be on a platform and try and consume the same content in a certain way, but ultimately it did incorporate multi-platform use, and that meant that we were trying to, the call to action was essentially to get people to move and to click and to keep their eyeballs interested, essentially. But your call to action could be some kind of let's move you through the sales process idea, which is great. Either's fine, either's good. But I really, do you know what? I really enjoyed doing something not sales related, because as I mentioned, I love selling. I love it. You know, I absolutely love it. And I believe in what we do so much. And I know how many people need our help. But it was a really nice challenge for me because for like the whole week, pretty much, well, not the whole week, but a lot of it. And I took the weekend off and I didn't sell on stories then either. As someone who sells on Instagram stories pretty much every day, it was a change for me because I wasn't. And it was good because it made me realize what people think when, you know, often I'm helping clients and it's the opposite. They don't sell on social. They don't sell online all the time. And so I'm helping them to be able to do that. So it was a really great understanding for us to kind of, for me to have a mirror up and be like, okay, this is what everyone else is doing. Like just chilling, like seeing how they're, you know, getting on with the day and stuff like that. And so that was a really interesting learning. Yeah, as a business, it went really well. I'm really happy. I'm really pleased we did it. And it was good. Now, I know this episode's a bit all over the place, but I don't really share much about the internals of May James. Not that I were, you know, hiding anything. It's just I tend to not be quite self-indulgent. I think it can be sometimes really self-indulgent even about people's businesses and their insides of them, because a lot of people like to tell you a lot about them. But I gather you probably like to hear them, so that's why it's a bit chaotic. In terms of running your own campaign, let's just quickly whiz through that, and then we will be done for today's episode. So, running your own campaign, it's easy to do, I say. I'm just saying that it takes ages and ages. In terms of the concept, right, you can make a campaign as complex or as simple as you want. It can be one piece of content, it could be hundreds of pieces of content. It depends on what you want it to be. But ultimately, you've got to understand what your goal is. Understand what the goal is of the campaign is so, so key, because every single piece of content you create from that and every single decision you make needs to come back to what is the goal and does that match with what the goal is? And that's literally what I did the last week. Was it really like, right, we're doing this. Does it hit this? Does it hit this? Does it hit this? If it's a no, then it's a no. The next part of that is your message. You need to have such a clear message. And your campaign message has to be so deeply just straightforward, straight to the point, easy for people to understand. The minute it becomes difficult is the minute that people just completely switch off. So like for us, the message was about, well, the goal was to celebrate members of our community and for people to just have a space to be on a platform to be like, hey, this is who I am, this is what I do. And then the message was about you can do anything. This is possible. Business, you can do business, right? You want to start a business, you can do it. That was the kind of message of it. It wasn't really complicated. It was literally like, this is it. Like, here's the message. Like, the message is you can do it. Like, women are bloody amazing. And we showed that through a series of different pieces of content, from what's their biggest achievement, from their best business tips, from me talking on a podcast. Like, we did a lot of different stuff to kind of get people on the fence of understanding that. Then the next thing is logistics. You need to get your logistics locked down, sorted in, really like sorted, because that takes ages. Sometimes the logistics stuff takes bloody ages to schedule everything and to, get it all like really clear. That can take a bit of time. Your call to action needs to be clear. I know I've just spoken about that, but I think understanding what your call to action is before you maybe create any content is actually really key. So we purposely mapped out the journey of what I wanted people to go on before we created any of the content, and that makes more sense in my opinion, because otherwise you end up with just reactive CTAs that often don't really add to the overall goal of the campaign. You need to understand your purpose, and what I mean by that is, what is the purpose of your business specifically carrying out the campaign? So, say like one campaign, 10 businesses could do that in your space. Why is it that you're doing it, and what does that mean? What is the purpose behind you specifically doing it? Get clear on that. And then also, obviously, you've got to create your assets. So asset creation can take ages. We obviously had to get other people involved because I wanted to include the community, so that it required communication and team members talking to people and helping people and making sure everyone had everything they needed. And there was a lot of like backwards and forwards and helping people. Well, I say a lot. There wasn't a lot, but there's assets have to be created. And so that was like a multi-person job and effort. You do need to decide on your channels that you're going to use, because it's all well and good creating assets, but obviously, as we know, often assets have to be made specifically for a platform or tweaked or put in a certain way. So really understand, what channels do you want to use. We could have used a couple of other different channels and we didn't, and there was a reason for that. And we also utilized some channels more than others. So, our key channels were Instagram, because that is our key home for the business. We did do a little bit on others, but the whole point of it was really focused around Instagram, and there was a lot of ideology as to why that was. There was the podcast, there was the website, there's other stuff going on, but I think it's interesting to get really clear on your channels and why you're using them. It's also a good idea, by the way, if you want to launch a different channel, that can be a great option. If you add a channel into your campaign that maybe is a new channel, that can work well. You then need to think about your partners. Are you getting any partners involved? So that for us was members of our community, which we wanted involved, and I was like, yep, let's go with that. So then there was some management around that, and making sure everyone had like an email, and making sure people knew when the content was coming out, or when when they needed to submit things or anything like that. Having someone on hand to be able to ask them questions. The other thing to think about is legalities and all of that kind of stuff, because with campaigns, it's very easy to get creative very quickly. But as we know, being creative doesn't necessarily mean that it's all legally sound. So you need to really be careful and think about, from a legality perspective, where are you at? It's also important to mention here, in terms of partners, if you're going to use partners, think about your diversity and inclusion policy. Think about, what do you want to do and what do you want to show? For us, that was a massive thing. And that has, to be honest, has been one of the reasons why we haven't done a campaign for a long time, because of my desire for certain aspects of diversity to be shown, and how do we do that in a really authentic way. I was really happy with the diversity that we showed this campaign. Could it be better? Yeah, always it could be. Did we have a really nice group of people? Yes, which from a diverse group of ages, race, disability, like a whole host of different things. Yeah, but obviously it can always be improved. So, but that was something that was very at the forefront, and much to sometimes team members' frustration, in the sense of how much that weighs heavy on me. I'm not saying that will weigh heavy on you. It's just sometimes for me, it gets very, quite heavy, and I get quite like in it all. I am really conscious about representation, and I'm conscious that we can always do better, but I'm also conscious about that's not a good enough, not excuse, but it's not a good reason in the first place. So there was a lot of things and effort made to try and make it diverse and be somewhat representative of the community. It's obviously hard when you are inviting people to take part in something, and then it's like a free campaign that people can get involved with, and we also only gave people like 48-hour window, so it was like a really quick turnaround thing, but it worked out fine, and I just want to mention diversity because I think it's important, or I personally value it and think it's very important, and therefore it's important for me to share that with you as members of my community. So once you have got that kind of put in place, You then need to create, I would argue, like one main project plan for all the content to go in. So as I mentioned, we chose Airtable because that's what we use in the business anyway. And we had it as a massive, massive little hub of its own. Everything in, is it scheduled? Here's the caption, here's the thing, here's that, what's happening here, who's doing that, allocated to a person, yada, 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 all in there. And that for me is really important and works so well. It just makes everything so much easier, right? So that's really key. And then obviously scheduling if you can, if you're a scheduler. We actually didn't schedule a lot of stuff. Some of the stuff I scheduled, but most of it I actually manually posted, which was a choice I had because I just didn't trust. I don't trust things after when we had the issue with the uploading at the start. I was like, oh, not sure that's going to work. So we do schedule some certain pieces of content, but on certain platforms that are notorious enough for not being the best in terms of scheduling, we did manually post in that sense. It is also important to have a backup plan. Yeah, like things go wrong. As I've mentioned to you, there was things on there that went wrong. There was probably other things that went wrong that I haven't told you. Actually, I think the timings of things, because we'd put a schedule out of timings, some of the timings did not end up sticking, which was fine. It was all right. What was good to note is because it was International Women's Day, I had loads of other stuff going on in the business anyway. So I had a speaking event, a business lunch, a client calls. Like we had a lot going on that day anyway. Normally, if we were doing a campaign, I would then be on hand, or would have, well, my market manager would be here, which would have helped the whole thing. But obviously, she wasn't there, which was fine. She would have been there on hand, and she could have made sure that the whole thing ran smoothly. But she wasn't there, so that was me. I was like, okay, I'll take this on. But I did have a lot going on anyway, so we made it work, right? It's fine. Like it all was good. It all went well. It was fine. But have a backup plan. Like know what's going to go wrong. We had certain things, like I had certain things in place, and we had certain measures in place for if this failed, or the blog didn't work, or the podcast thing, or this didn't happen, to kind of really make sure that it was all gonna somewhat pull together. And then the final thing I would say that you need to think about is getting really organized and clear on just what is the plan for the campaign, who is responding to comments, who's messaging, who's this, who's that. Like just really get clear on it and understand from a campaign perspective, what are you doing? Obviously following your campaign, try and get feedback, try and understand like what went well, what didn't. I really enjoyed hearing feedback, and people were really gracious in their beautiful feedback that they left. So thank you if that was you. And if you do have any feedback about the International Women's Day campaign, I'd really love to hear whether that's good, whether that's bad, whether you've got some areas for improvement. I'm here. I'm an open book. I'm up for. I like to hear what your thoughts are. But yeah, try and get a really decent reporting system in. My market manager is back, and she is drafting up the report of how it went, which I'm really excited to see, and to see the impact. I mean, we can obviously see the immediate figures anyway, in the sense of from analytics and things like that. But it's nice, and it was really fun to deliver a campaign of that style. But yes, if you're going to do a campaign, good luck. I hope it goes well. There's so many fun things you can do them on. If I lived in like an ideal world, you could just do one like every month. It would be something you could do a really cool thing on and do really fun. I mean, I know there's whole businesses that revolve around that, and that is their jam. But it's really fun to be creative, because as much as I am a very strategic driven individual, I do actually love being creative and having full creative control over things, and commissioning things, and having giving the team real like fun to play with things is really nice. People can be really creative, and I really enjoy that. And I love when the team come with things and say, right, I want to do this, can we do it? Or, oh, why don't we do this? And I'm like, yeah. And yesterday that happened. Team member came and she said, have you thought about doing this? I said, no, but let's go. Like, you can do that. If you want to run with that, go for it. And that's really exciting to me. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. It's really great to speak with you today. Yeah, I will catch you next week. Take care, have a good one, or go and binge another episode maybe. Maybe you want to delve further into the Honest Business catalogue. There is a lot of different episodes. We have strategic episodes, we have mindset-based episodes, there's a leadership discussion, there is a whole lot of different things going on. So there's many an episode for you to dive into now. There's over 50 of them. So there's a lot to look into. Take care, and I will speak to you next week. Bye.